read it word for word. Janet?
Page 1.
That's right, we'll go through all 200 and whatever pages.
A lot.
You got it.
A lot.
It's to the Honorable Mayor Bell, the Board of Commissioners.
Starts with page 1. Page 2 of but I feel like I might be in the way.
Yeah, whatever you say, I'll do it.
I was trying to see Emily's shirt because from here it looks like Spider-Man. Like the webbing. So that's why I was like, that'd be awesome. Extra muscles and webbing is what it looks like. You know I have cards on me always.
More people come in, they get them.
I had a class outside the room here, so I'm real free.
We always sit here.
I'm like, I feel like we're tipping.
Rob can sit right there and I'll just be like that.
You're invading our territory, Dan.
All right.
It's colder over here.
Is Commissioner Kidwell going to be able to join us? Mr. Roberts, is Commissioner Kidwell going to be able to join us? Have we heard?
I do not know.
Now it's
Okay.
only 4 o'clock. I'll text them.
Okay, we are live. So let's go ahead and call this special meeting to order. We are here today to have a budget workshop. And with that, there's no reason for pomp and circumstance here. Mr. Roberts, let's just get to work.
Janet, you ready? All right, Janet gave me a thumbs up. So, obviously, we're not gonna go back over all the various things we've talked about so far. I'm gonna probably hone in on a few items and then see if we can kind of get some resolution on that, so that Patty can prepare us, where did Patty go? She already quit? We can prepare, hopefully, for adoption on Monday, was it June 5th?
Yep, that's
So
right.
that would be the goal, to kind of maybe tie up some loose ends tonight so that we can get prepared for that. So as you recall, the manager's recommended budget was at 19 cents. Obviously, we've gone through reval. Penny went from roughly $1 million to generating $1.5 million. So the driver of this budget will be the tax rate, what the board sets as a tax rate. And right now, why is the manager recommending 19 cents? Obviously, garbage, is roughly $700,000 increase. It was dispatch contract, roughly $500,000 increase. Various other items in the budget that are causing increases. Obviously, town hall that will be coming up, to various capital items. We got many capital items. And if the board not the board, but citizens approve a bond in the future, obviously there's going to be some impacts on that in future years also. But I know there's been some conversation on whether we stay at 19 cents or whether we go revenue neutral. And so that's a big conversation that we can have. If you say, Anthony, can we go revenue neutral this year? I think I have told you, or I have told some of you if you ask me, and the truth is, yes, we can go revenue neutral this year. And what I would just tell you that, can you just flip, I know I'm going to be flipping back and forth, go to the 5-year financial forecast. The reason, and these are forecasts, we put in estimates, we've gone through this whole process. Bobby, let's see where I'm at here. Go to, there we go, fund balance. So, if you look down at so this one is not the latest. Go to, if you look at it, stay right there, 19 cents. So if we're looking at our 5-year financial forecast, we you see where the fund balance sort of goes, okay. This doesn't include anything for fire yet. Obviously, we don't know. We anticipate fire, we're gonna be hiring fire again soon, but I don't know yet, because the plan hadn't come back to the board. We haven't put anything in the board. That will have some major impact. Now, we have town hall in here, we have debt finance in here, but fire, et cetera, not in. So that fund balance, say, drops in half. Still getting mighty low, probably won't be that low, based on some of our conservative estimates. Go ahead.
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed is the 21 cents below, is that based on the adjustment for bond?
Yeah, so we're just,
Okay.
actually, in the bond, we'll get talking about bonds later on, what will be in the educational package is 2.75 cent, right?
2.8, I think.
2.8,
Okay.
is what, we would probably put in that educational piece. But we had to do some estimates here where we said, okay, let's assume in 25 it went up 2 pennies and kept it across it. Who knows what the board's going to do next year, the following year, the following year. But we make some assumption. If you raise it back up 2 pennies and kept it there, that's sort of what your fund balance would be that far out.
We have to make some assumptions, so think about it. We don't know what's going to happen with what rate we might add fire employees, if at all. That's going to have a major impact. We did make the assumption that there would be a bond issue in addition to town hall. But what else might happen and what might go on with solid waste, there are some things that are in. We can list for you what's in, what's out, but to balance the FY24 budget, I wouldn't put a whole lot of stock yet in the 12% increase in the reval in FY28. I would concentrate on the nearer years.
This is just to show you, don't get too hung up on way out there. These are estimates, we make assumptions. But the point here is to show, if you go back to now plug in 17.6, and you see how far we dropped down now. And we made an assumption that you just go up 2 cents and hold it steady across. Like Jackie said, who knows if it goes up 42% like it did before, obviously that's a huge increase. So it just kind of gives you an idea of what impacts it has on future years. But to get back to the point earlier, can we go revenue neutral this fiscal year? Absolutely we can. But we will be sitting in here, whoever will be sitting in here next year during budget time. And I would imagine that Jackie and Anthony, assuming we're still here, and whoever else will be saying, we have to raise taxes. We'll have to. You can't take on a $30 million town hall, assuming the board approved, citizens approved $58 million in debt, and all the other things, fire, if we take on fire, et cetera. And just assume your fund balance is, let's just assume it's that number. You can't pay $88 million worth of stuff. With that, yes, we'll be, financing some of that, but with all the other stuff that goes on in normal operations, you're gonna have to do something. So that's just a point I wanna make, as we continue to think about this. So,
If you want to look at the 5-year financial forecast, you can predict what I would say. So Patty's currently on the 17.6, the revenue neutral spreadsheet that shows by the end of 28, our total fund balance, including all the specialties like stormwater and POW bill, would be down to 19 million. So Patty, switch back over real quickly to the 19 cents. So Jackie, do you feel more comfortable at a fund balance of 27 or 19? Every one of you can predict what I would say. I'd feel better at 27 than I would at 19. I'd feel better at more than 27. Some of the assumptions in here include 30 million in debt issuance on town hall, plus 25 million of the proposed 58 that we are asking voters for in the fall, and then an additional issuance in
28. Don't get super hung up on that. I could argue there's no tax increase when you issue the 33 million, the next issuance of the 58 million we're asking voters for this year. While there's no tax rate impact of it, look, if the reval's going up 12%, effectively you've given people a 12% tax increase in FY 28 if you don't change the tax rate if you have a 12% reval. So could you balance the FY 24 budget with no tax increase? Yes, you can do it at revenue neutral. You got decisions to make, and they're not terrible this year, but I cannot imagine a 25 budget without a tax increase. If you issue debt on town hall, and if you issue some of the bond referendum, which I suspect might get approved, and pending what you do with fire.
So let me ask this quick question then, Jackie. If the board chooses to go revenue neutral this year, we move forward with town hall, we cash out however much of the bond package and making the assumption it's approved, what jump in a tax rate would we need to cover that? And the reason I ask that is because as a taxpayer, I would much rather have incremental increases in my tax rate than going from revenue neutral to a 3 or 4 cent increase in my like incremental steps versus hitting my budget kind of hard out of the gate.
I have to give disclaimers, and so the
It
answer to
depends.
every question is it depends. What might we fund with fire? If we decide to take on fire employees, that's gonna be an ongoing cost every single year, and so I don't know what to do with that information. What level of fund balance are you willing to go to? How much might the bond issue be? What's the timing of that? There are so many eccentricities, it's just hard to get your head around it now. I would anticipate the debt service payment on town hall to be in excess of 2 million, probably not 3 million. I cannot envision our annual recurring payments, like a debt service payment on town hall. Let's just assume it's 2.5 million. I can't imagine our recurring for 20 years operating cost in the form of a debt service payment going up 2.5 million, and Jackie not recommending a revenue stream to pay for that. If there's one besides the tax rate, I'm at a loss for it. And none of this even talks about a couple of entities raised their tax rate this year, so what they will be receiving in sales tax in FY 24 will be slightly higher. And then if we go revenue neutral in 24 and other entities don't, that will reduce our size of the sales tax distribution in FY 24, which will also have an impact on what we have available to fund in the 25 budget.
There's a follow-up question, I'm sorry. You talked fire. I know you've looked at some other communities that fund their own fire. Any idea what the impact to the tax rate, just a spitball figure on what we should expect once we do bring a full-time department online under the town umbrella?
There are numerous entities that we can go look at that have 4 stations, and there are numerous entities we can look at that have comparable populations. It's hard for me to wrap my head around as I sit here today, the idea that it would be a light switch approach for us, and one day we would not have paid fire, and the next day we would accomplish fire protection services in town with exclusively town employee firefighters. Many entities, ballpark our size, that have full-time firefighter municipal employees pay between 7 and 15 million a year, fund their fire departments at 7 to 15. Yep. Now, some of them might have 6 stations where we have 4, and I can't remember everybody else's budget off the top of my head, but it's not, I cannot, we're paying 4 or 5 million today. It's not gonna be less than that.
And I think that's what I want the board to hear, that when we do pull that trigger, there needs to be some funds there for startup. And then the ongoing costs and I agree with you, if there's a way to grow into it versus flipping the light switch, that would be beneficial to us. But this board and future boards are gonna have to be cognizant of the impact to the budget.
I want to feel like I thoroughly answered your question. Commissioner Boone had his hand up a couple of
I'm
times.
done. Commissioner Boone?
Yeah, let's look at fiscal year '25, and we're using $12 million of ARPA money that we won't have in the year 2025 budget. How are you going to, or what do you recommend the funds come for that payroll tax, or payroll that we have for the police now?
Well, so once you issue debt, that again, that's me saying, I think you're gonna have to, I would recommend you, explore tax rate alternatives, and you're likely gonna have to start funding less in capital. If memory serves, since about FY '20, we have, I think generally speaking, rarely before FY '20 did we use the original budget to fund substantial capital projects, and from about FY '20 to about FY '24 in this recommended budget, we are using fund balance to fund a lot of capital projects. And as I think the 5-year forecast indicates, we're drying up a source.
Yeah, I mean, we get heavy here, obviously, as you can see. This is when things start hitting the books here. You can look back and you see kind of,
Patty, if you'll display the bottom of the CIP spreadsheet, I think it does a pretty good job of illustrating what portion of in FY '24. So of the $12 million in ARPA this year in FY '24, if we're recognizing $12 million in ARPA revenue, we're funding $8.5 million in capital projects. So you see how 8.5 goes down to 3.4 the next year? Mystery solved. If you have less money available to fund those capital projects, you just have less to fund.
Commissioner Moser?
Sure. One of the things that's always stuck with me is when you said our current fund balance was 50 million plus, we had actually 8 million available. As we trend down, how does that work? How does the math work?
So clearly, there is our fund balance policy says we'll set aside anything we happen to have in excess of 40% to use for a capital purpose. Well, at this point, I'm not gonna say we'd be in violation of that policy, but how I would word that is there is no excess of 40%, so you don't have anything set aside anymore. I hope that answers your question.
And then at some point, though, it's gonna be hard to get that 40%.
yeah,
It won't be
we'll
there.
begin,
It'll
as
be
we
a
get
goal
here,
instead of an excess.
27, 28 is probably, things get a little tight right there.
It's gonna get tight.
That far out, or do you think it'll happen by
It'll be
25?
earlier, it'll be
26?
26.
No, not there.
Yeah.
It's not gonna, 43 will be fine.
Because I mean, next year, based on what we're seeing in the 25, I think I saw somewhere a net drop of 9 million.
Yeah.
20 million of that FY '26 is gonna be.
Well, I saw a change to the fund balance. Wasn't there? Oh,
Right here.
sorry, it's 7.5 million. I misquoted.
17 cents.
Depends on which one you're looking at,
At
yeah.
17 cents.
Yeah.
Ah,
It was
that's where I
there.
saw it. So if we went revenue neutral, fund balance would drop by 9.5.
If you
next
fund those
fiscal year.
things, and that didn't make an assumption necessarily about funding firefighters. Sorry, beating a drum there, but.
And some of these things, like I say, don't get hung up on the exact numbers here, because some of these things are gonna move, slide back and forth, but, I mean, it is definitely gonna go down. It's simple math. It's got to go down.
Well, I'm trying to focus on FY '25 because that's less than, I mean, we're within a year of it,
Yep.
essentially. And it's just, that's not that far out. I'll give you 27, 28, maybe we shouldn't look at that far out, but next fiscal year, it's right there.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's very concerning.
So get to the question at hand, because this drives everything. Is actually, what does the board want to do on the tax rate?
So I would say, you've painted a bleak picture. What are some positives that could come in our benefit? So we've asked for CRTPO
$4
to
million or
assist
so
us with some
CRTPO.
Main Street cost. And so that might be a positive, so we wouldn't dip into fund balance as much.
500,000 if I get worked out on the dispatch. So, you're $45 million there. Other grants, things like that that we're able to obtain are not assumed in here because I hate to make a $5 million assumption and we don't get it. So there are positive things that will drive these down. Obviously, Jackie and Patty being as conservative as they are, hopefully they are, saving a few pennies like they have in the past, so these numbers won't be as bad. Yes, sir.
Anthony, the current plan, as far as the town hall, $30 million, would increase approximately the base 1 or 2%, 1 or 2 pennies. I mean, if we had a lesser cost for the town hall, instead of 35 million, 30 million, we had a 19 million. What would be the difference as far as the tax base? Will we need to increase, or can we?
So so let's just say we'll just use round numbers. So if a $30 million town hall, Jackie said debt service payments, we're gonna round up, 3 million. We're rounding up, say, if it's a $3 million debt service payment for 20 years, it's probably gonna be less than that, but let's just use that number to make it simple math. So if it was 15, we'll just say it's 1.5 million.
A smart rule of thumb is to assume that your debt service payment is going to be 10% of the principal
That's just
annually.
a simple way to look at it. So it's probably not gonna be a 15, whatever, even if you went back across the street, some future board said do that, we're moving full steam ahead here, but we're just talking, if it was $20 million, so then 2 million versus 3 million. Debt service payment is probably what you look at.
And thank you for the reminder for something else that could end up being a positive. We've done a reimbursement resolution, so the board approved a $3 million use of fund balance in FY '23 to start funding the startup cost associated with town hall, including the design. If we did a reimbursement resolution, so that is accounting speak for when we issue the debt, reimburse ourselves back for that. So if we pay back fund balance for that $3 million, that's something else that could impact this in a appreciable, positive way.
The other thing I would say is that on the town hall, I think we'll be coming on June, second meeting in June, Bobby. The board will, to continue moving it ahead, we'll start to spend we're spending serious money now, but we're really starting to spend some serious money based on feedback from the board. I'd say it's second meeting in June. And that, I think you've heard us say before, and I'm being real simplistic, but let's move this thing further ahead, order steel, those kind of things.
I guilted Kevin to sit next to me because I look like I have COVID or something. I was sitting by myself, so you all are welcome to come join us up here. To me, Stephen made me feel like I did a decent job of, the FY '24 budget assumes we make a more than $4 million contribution from fund balance to Main Street and the CRTPO money. There's probably a better way to word that, but hopefully the general fund impact would be less than 4 if we get that grant. So
That's a big one.
that would be, to me, oh my gosh, Jackie, you Chicken Little, you painted a terribly bleak picture, but there are some things that could make it less bleak.
And typically we do. I mean, we typically overperform, so based on these numbers here. But we really need to get at, what just gonna drive all this is tax rate, but we wouldn't be doing justice if we didn't tell you kind of what's coming down the pike, what could happen, et cetera. But tax rate is what drives all.
Commissioner Munker.
Can you entertain me and create a copy of that spreadsheet and then flip the rate to 20 and string it out 20 all the way across?
Leave it at 17.6.
Nope, 20. I want every single number there at 20.
And that's adding two, whoa.
Just
No, I don't want
20
All the way
across.
across.
Just do,
Yeah,
20
I
all
want them all
across.
20. All right, now look at our fund balance.
See, if you don't hit the tax rate when you issue 88 million in debt, if you don't hit the tax rate when you issue 88 million in debt, to me, that's not as positive as you might have guessed. It's better than 19, 25 better than 19.
I guess my problem is taxes are gonna change this year. It's almost a given that residents are going to pay, they're gonna pay more on their homes and less on their vehicles. And don't ever lose context of that. Vehicles depreciate in value. As the tax rate goes down, they pay less on vehicles. So there's a bit of a trade. There will be a change in the tax rate one way or another. If we change it this year and then we decide to change it next year again, or the year after, because you know by the year after you're changing it, period. If that bond is issued, you're absolutely changing it if you go any number. Wouldn't it make more sense just to pick a number that strings across and keeps us more in balance and rips the Band-Aid off once instead of having to do it every year we're changing the tax rate? My opinion. And maybe 20 is not the number, but that's where I would start.
Well, my question is, does that 25 keep us, keeping the 40%? No, it does not. Thank you.
No,
Ms.
that doesn't keep us at 40%.
Okay.
Yeah,
Commissioner
and
Kovacs?
what I would say is, I wouldn't get too hung up on that. Different boards, different people may say 40% is not the number, but now we're much higher, budget, so towns may tend to change their percentages, so I wouldn't get too hung up on all that.
Commissioner Kovacs?
In my opinion, looking at the 17.6, it doesn't seem like, I guess it seems great from a resident standpoint, but for the town, it doesn't feel like we're being responsible with our money. Especially because if we were to do that now, it is basically guaranteed that whatever board is sitting here a year from right now is going to have to go up.
And a large amount.
And a large amount, yeah. And so you have people, if we go revenue neutral right now, it sounds great for a year and you look like a hero, but then the next set of people, you're setting them up to look like villains because we're gonna have to go up to make up for what happened this year. I am, I don't know who said it, but of the mindset, I would rather smaller increments, or rather than getting blasted with everything all at once, or thinking, oh, thank God things went down, that's how it'll be now. And then all of a sudden it's up more. I do understand people are on fixed incomes. I don't think at 19% we would be harming that too much, but if we need a safety net, this may be a little out of there, but I was talking to to Ms. Bergsman, and we were talking about can we put money aside and have it so that way we can set something up for residents that can apply and say, you know what, this burden on me, can I get help with the difference that is, that increased on my taxes because I'm on a tax, on a budget. Mecklenburg County can help, but maybe if what we're doing in the extra $100 a year is just too much, if there's something that we can do. But I would much rather a smaller increase. It's not really an increase because we're going down, but the amount they're paying is going up, but not nearly what they've expected it to go up.
I would say in regards to issues with seniors, affordable housing, et cetera, I think what you will find is that the Affordable Housing Task Force will most likely bring back several initiatives that the board could choose from to address some of those things too.
And yeah, that was just throwing it out there, but just in having conversation. I don't want to make light of it and say, bless you, I don't want to help people that are on a fixed income or that this is just too much for them. I get that, and I would love for us to find a way to help and take responsibility for that. But in the grand scheme of things, we also have to be good stewards of the town's money as well.
Commissioner Munger.
Sorry, I'm extra chatty. If I remember correctly, and again, relying on you, Jackie, revenue neutral is a lie, simply because revenue neutral only holds true if all areas go revenue neutral. And if I remember correctly, Dina Diario has requested 1.5 cents over revenue neutral, which means Mecklenburg County, if they adopt, would go above revenue neutral, which should actually shift the revenue neutral for us somewhat. there was something in what you said, if we went revenue neutral, but if everyone else shifted, we would actually lose money.
We would lose sales tax dollars.
Sales tax dollars, I apologize.
A piece of the pie will get smaller.
So the theory of revenue neutral, it's not true.
Dependent upon other people.
So you came in at the right time.
Hey, Commissioner Goodwill, how are you? Loving life. Me too.
Tax rate? Tax rate?
Ultimately, that's what we need to know is, tax rate, then tell me what you want it to be, and then we can tell you how if we do go revenue neutral, how would Anthony, how would you make up the 2.1 million? We can do that if you, obviously, at 19, you know what's funded in the budget.
Right. You know, I think that it's the incremental that I think we need to be cognizant of. I agree with Commissioner Kovacs that, looking at those numbers, something has to happen. Do you push it off another year and let it land in someone else's lap and kind of pawn off that? Or does this board incrementally increase with the manager's recommended budget or somewhere in between, and then allow it to incrementally increase moving forward and let another board handle it? That's the $20 million question.
112.
Well, almost $112 million question. Anyone?
What's your question?
What do you want
Do
the
you
tax
want
rate
the
to be?
tax
What,
rate to be?
that's the question.
Oh, I'm at revenue neutral, or the theory of revenue neutral, whatever makes people feel good.
Okay. Let's wait for, I was thinking, do we want to do a straw poll?
That would be helpful, just so we can come to you with, hopefully the right paperwork on the 5th. If
Yeah.
not, we'll have to, Patty will be back there in the office, ready to click the buttons and make.
Right. I do agree. I mean, the board needs to make a decision this evening so that staff can prepare all of the documents. We don't want to string
would make it-
folks along.
Much easier.
Of course it would. Of course it would. And we certainly don't want to make life miserable for anyone. While we're waiting, are there any other comments or questions around this budget? Anything else that we need that eyes open? I think we talked about the future impact of fire and what that's going to have on the budget. If we're able to slowly transition, kind of a slower transition into fire, obviously that would be beneficial for our tax rate. That would create an incremental,
That's the plan.
in theory, versus flipping a light switch and it, going from 4 or 5 million for fire to somewhere between 8 and, what did you say, Jackie? 8 and 14 million or something like that? Somewhere in there, depending upon the amount of stations and firefighters that would need to be hired.
That would likely come back after the
But
first of
that
the year
would,
for
you
the
would,
budget money.
right.
And that is not included in here at all.
So, and the expectation of the study is that it would come back by January? Is that the game
I have to look
plan?
at Jackie here. I don't, and she's probably gonna say it depends.
6 to 12 months?
We're trying to get our ducks in a row. However long those ducks
You
take.
have a motivated group, and so I would like to think January is realistic, but, please be patient.
Oh, of course.
We're thorough.
I like thorough. That means you're looking at all potential unintended consequences, so that's a good thing. So we're going to go ahead and just do a straw poll right now of where everyone is. We'll start with the manager's recommended at 19 cents. Is kind of straw poll here. Where are you with 19 cents in the manager's recommended budget? None.
No, yes, like,
Oh.
you have, yes?
Oh,
You're
yes.
for it? Yes.
Who's for the 19 cents manager's recommended budget? Okay. The other side of that spectrum is revenue neutral. Where are you all? I got 3 revenue neutral. Okay, so, folks, it is your job to set the tax rate. So if we need to have some more dialogue, let's have the dialogue.
Well, what are the other?
Why, yeah, where are you? If it's not 19 and it's not revenue neutral, where are you?
I think if you're gonna go revenue neutral, we need to start sitting here and redlining.
Well, that would be up
I mean,
for,
I can't say I'm for or against anything if you're not gonna take stuff out of the budget. Like, I don't wanna set the town up to get completely screwed next year.
So if we go revenue neutral, there are 3 items that will move. And those 3 items are, do we have, what we can show them, or do I need to just say?
They're actually adding these numbers already.
So the 3 items are, and you're gonna be like, oh, wait,
What are they?
it's not cutting it. It's just, so, we had assumed, sorry, is that me?
That was me.
We had assumed that,
Oh, now it's all Rob's fault.
jeez.
all right, we had assumed that a town hall payment would be in this budget, 1.5 of it.
You mean
Now,
that
do that one.
debt service payment on town hall?
Yes, a debt service payment. If you recall, I said 30 million
Gets moved.
equals 3 million, 1.5 and 1.5, 2 payments. We would have making the assumption that there would be 1 payment in FY '24. All likelihood, that payment would shift to 25. So that's 1.5 million of it there. And then we would cut 2% out of merit COLA, because we had 8 and 2. So we'd cut 2% out of that. Each percent equals 210,000, so that is 420,000, so that gets you at 1.9. And then there's definitely gonna be some savings in the dispatch agreement, with my conversation with, the Charlotte city manager.
So Nathan, you're saying that, the 1.4 cent tax rate, that is the difference between 19 cents and 17.60, that would generate $2.1 million.
Yes, ma'am.
So where could we go find 2.1 million? You're saying 1.5 in debt service payments, or debt service payment reserve for town hall, 420 in dropping employee raise from 10 to 8%.
That's right.
And the rest would come out of the assumption about what we'll get Charlotte to agree to about dispatch.
And actually, that's what this version right here is. That 17.6.
So that is included.
That is included in this version right here.
Because, and to be clear, Commissioner Phillips, they can't provide us with a balanced budget without cutting. So it looks like they've already done that.
If salaries have a decent impact, should we talk about that before we decide on the tax rate?
Well, I guess the question is, town hall gets shifted another year, so that's kicking the can another year, correct?
It's not kicking town hall at all.
It's still going.
We're
we just don't
still,
have a payment.
we're rolling full steam ahead until the board directs me otherwise. The only thing that happens is, we were making the assumption that we would get a 1 debt service payment in FY '24, but time we go to LGC and all that and how it all works, it's just like your house, the payment would actually not happen until, we'd have 2 payments in '25 instead of 1 in '24. We'd have 2 payments in '25, '26, '27, '28, 20 years.
Which is what that number right there, Mayor, has that full effect
Okay,
of the town hall payment.
But
Okay.
we're not kicking the can at all unless the
Okay.
board directs me otherwise.
It's just timing of the debt payment.
Yeah, that's all it
Okay.
is.
okay.
So that's how we would, if 4 hands say revenue neutral, we came prepared to be able to not get in and, let's cut 5,000 here and 10,000 there and 20 there.
Just go ahead and you've nixed the couple of big items.
Yep.
Commissioner Munger?
Yeah, sometimes I apologize, I get lost in moving zeros. A penny on $100,000 is $100? Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure I have the math right. So, yeah, just trying to understand what the impact is per penny. Like on a $500,000 house, it's $500. for the year. So, yeah, no?
$100,000
Yeah,
times 1 cent. I think it's $10, not 100.
Okay.
$10. So you're telling me
For a
on
hundred,
a, I'm sorry?
for $100,000 house.
Yeah, but on a $500,000 house, which
Mhm.
is what it is, it would be $50.
Divided by 12.
Divided by 12, thank you. So $4.12 and a half per month. Wow. We're having this discussion about these numbers. We're
gonna
having
break
a
anyway.
discussion about
Pennies.
$4.12.5 on a $500,000 house per month. Holy shit. Yeah, I'm definitely at 20. I have absolutely no qualms about saying it should be 20. And even if we issue a bond and it has to go up 2 cents more, up to 22. We have so many needs in this town. I've been to other towns all over the area. They have vibrant downtown areas, and they have community input, and they have so much to offer, and it's because they have a reasonable tax rate that allows them to do things. Every road I drive on in this town needs improvement. I mean, you find me a road in this town that doesn't need to be improved, that hasn't been built in the last 2 to 3 years, I will bow down before you. We have so many needs in this town. To say we're fiscally conservative and we're gonna drain that balance down and stand on it to grandstand to say that we don't need things because we care about the taxpayers, I care about the taxpayers. Taxpayers want improvements. They want to come to a town that is investing in the future and doing the right thing for all citizens. 20 is not even up for negotiation.
Hambright, McElwain, McCoy, older roads, great condition. Older than 3
No one
years.
drives on them, really.
Yeah, that's not what you asked.
That's the pre.
No, you didn't specify, and by the way, all 3 of those roads are over by Cedarfield, so yes, people drive on them.
So Commissioner Munger, you're at 20. Commissioner Kovacs, are you still with 19 at the recommended budget? Okay. Commissioner Kidwell, you're at revenue neutral, 17.6. Commissioner Partee,
I'm flipping.
where are you at?
I tend to agree with Lance Munger after hearing those numbers. I mean, it's not gonna break, anyway, I'm at 20 with Munger.
You're at 20 with Munger. Commissioner Boone?
I'm at revenue neutral, and the reason why is that, and Lance, I understand it's $50, but people, not everybody lives in a house. Somebody who rents on a monthly basis, once you go up on their property taxes, the rent goes up also. And I'm in the camp of, I think this country is soon to be in a recession. And I think that if we don't take some advice from Stacy when she said we need to put a red line to some of this stuff, Mr. Roberts made 3 points. I think there's 2 additional points that need to be made. That, Jackie, I think that historically your estimates have been very, very conservative. And is it a $2 million conservative? I don't know. But I think that if we're looking to keep it revenue neutral, I'd ask the town manager to go back and look at every line in his budget and cut it by a percentage till you get the $2 million.
Commissioner Phillips?
I'm over here playing numbers.
Okay.
So the 1.5 million on town hall, 2% merit, and then taking trash from $18 and going up 28, that would put us right at 2.5 million. Cause trash services is a qualm of mine because I think it's kind of dumb that other taxpayers are paying for people who have houses to subsidize their trash, so.
What?
Because people,
So just to be clear, so, the solid waste fee in the current fiscal year is 126. and we have in here taking it up to 144.
$15.
And you're saying take it, how many dollars over to 144?
10 more,
Thank you.
because each dollar is $21,857.
Yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am.
And we subsidize people's trash because they're 59% is what they're paying. So I mean, you wanna get real down to the conservative talks, let's make people pay their own way.
I've been championing that for a while. That one, right, big fan.
So, but where are you at with the tax rate? At 17.6?
More redlining has to be done, like, and ideally, I am revenue neutral because you shouldn't be spending what you don't have. But if we're gonna promise people goods and services, then the price has to reflect that. So I don't wanna sit here and pass a budget that's full of promises and great projects that next year, I'm trying not to cuss. Like, people are gonna have their butts handed to them, and I don't like things like that. Like, I'm trying to be mindful, and this board needs to do more work if we're gonna say revenue neutral. Then what's the work going into it?
Right. Well, I would also remind that the next year's budget is for next year's board. And we can't also sit here and bind a future board to decisions either.
Well, I'm not buying a future board, I'm looking out for the people that live in this town next year.
I hear you. So where are we at?
You got 2 at 20, 2 at Rev, 1 at 19, and 1
Undecided.
And one undecided. So, but we can't leave tonight without giving some direction.
20 it is.
So to make a comment, piggybacking on Commissioner Boone. The recession's here. All right, I work in manufacturing. I'm dealing with distributors. I'm dealing with vendors all over the country. All right, people are pulling back hard time, hardcore. Companies are not buying. They are not spending. They are scared. They are very, very scared. That is the beginning of the recession. When manufacturing in this country starts slowing down, and when Amazon stops shipping out as much, which they are, when Walmart is not shipping out as much, which they are, it is at our doorstep. I sit in 2 meetings a week preparing for this coming right at us. Figuring out how I'm gonna continue to employ 16 people so their families are taken care of. And those cutbacks are coming hard. So whether you believe me or not, or whether you think it's all hunky-dory out there, it's not. I get 2 calls a week, minimum, from companies that are looking to place people with me, temporary agencies, because companies are shutting down, companies are laying off in the area. And I don't have the room for them. I can't bring them into my spot. So,
Well, I guess depending upon where they are, I would encourage you then to share some of those folks with the
Listen,
agency, then to push them out, because there are still jobs posting everywhere up here. I don't know about South Charlotte, but up here,
I work
they're
in South
posting.
Charlotte. Most of the people that come work for me, they are down in the rural areas. So bottom line is, the recession's coming. And I guarantee you, the EDC, these companies up here are getting the same calls that I am.
I squirm a lot in my chair when you talk about recession and the likelihood of consumers having less to spend and spending less, because that tells me that I'm getting a smaller piece of a smaller pie for sales tax in FY '24. So you're eroding my confidence in the.
I know. I'm sorry.
It's in my
I
own,
wanna-
in my own estimate.
Jackie, you, every year that I've seen you present, you do an awesome job. I'm just telling you from a real standpoint in the world where I'm in daily, it's coming.
I believe you. You're making the case for me for the conservative revenue estimates. Thank you.
Commissioner Moore?
Yeah, one of my favorite sayings is that the market has correctly predicted 12 out of the last 5 recessions. Market is always reactive and ready for it to happen. Recession's just around the corner. Sometimes it gets right, sometimes it overreacts and it corrects. I can tell you from my perspective, on my team, I have 8 positions. I have 5 of those filled. I had a new person start yesterday, so I'm just over half. I've been looking to fill those other 3 positions since the day I started 6 months ago. Inflation in the United States, Jackie, you probably know off the top of your head, but it's around 3.5%.
Inflation,
Sorry, unemployment.
3.4.
3.4%. Basic rule of thumb in economics is that once you get to between 4 and 5%, it's the equivalent of full employment. Everyone who wants a job can have a job. We can argue on semantics based on people qualifications and what they can do in life, but I can't tell you how hard it is for me to try and find a human being. I have made offers to people who have 2, 3 offers at the same time. This is the industries that I deal with. So from my perspective, people aren't out there scrambling for things. And it's all different, it's all relative to someone's position in life. I fully acknowledge that.
That's true.
Some people have different qualifications that are in higher demand, some people don't have those qualifications and it becomes harder for them. But what I also point to, and when you talk about recession, is the overall inflation factor. Some of these numbers, what's your inflation factor for future projects right now? Do you know? Some of the construction projects?
Capital projects?
Yeah, capital projects, my apologies.
What do we build any percentage in for future?
Between 25 and 45%. Total cost.
Total cost increases over so I mean, that's why I stick to the higher numbers, simply because it's going to cost more. It's going to cost a lot more. I mean, one of the unfortunate downsides, I don't know where you stand on it overall, one of the unfortunate downsides to ARPA is it flooded the market with funds. And it made a lot of capital projects suddenly become available. And all these construction companies all of a sudden said, sweet, we can raise our rates because we're in such high demand. It's the same thing that I'm dealing with trying to hire people. They can ask for more, and they will continue to ask for more until that somewhat levels off. But we have to be able to try and keep up with it so that we make our projects important. And this is why revenue neutral is just not going to work. It's just going to leave us behind. I'm sorry, I'll see.
ARPA funding was required to be committed by 12/31/24 and required to be spent by the end of 26. So there's an end date.
Yeah, so we're still stringing that one out.
Commissioner Porti?
Yeah. To piggyback on Commissioner Munger's rationale for his numbers, when I moved from New York here to Huntersville, and I moved into a nice community, I want to say upscale community, because I can afford it. And moving from Long Island, where my tax base was $25,000 a year. $25,000 a year. So this is a discount. This is a discount. My property tax. So this is definitely a discount. When I ride around Huntersville, beautiful residential communities, $1 million homes, $500,000 homes, $200,000 homes. People are moving here for the lifestyle, as we all did, for the lifestyle. Quoting the rates on a penny on $100,000 is really, and I can speak for myself. I use that going back to the local brewery right here. I spend that up every week for my entertainment, for my pleasure, my family, restaurants. And when I drive around Huntersville, I see every business full. So therefore, when Commissioner Munger rationaled it, I'm sitting here thinking about my own situation, because I can afford it. But yes, we do have communities where they cannot afford it, but they enjoy the amenities of what we built here, or what we are building here in Huntersville. Middle class, upper middle class, blue collar communities. And moving forward, on what Commissioner Kovac said, yeah, we have to think about what's ahead so that we don't fall behind our resources, because we're going to continue to build. We just voted on, which I didn't, on a $30 million plus town hall. We have to think about the future. Now, whoever sits in these seats next year, I wouldn't want to put that on their burden when we can resolve it right now. So just to piggyback on and reinforce what Commissioner Munger said, I agree with him. Looking at that, from that perspective, I should say. And I think the community itself, our residents, our commercial residents, will thank us. That's just my opinion, however everybody receives it. So,
Anyone else? Well, from where I sit, I think Commissioner Kovacs was right in sticking with the manager's recommended budget and the recommended tax rate. We pay a very qualified staff to put together a budget, a balanced budget, and they've done an exceptional job in the last 12 years that I've sat on this board. When we listen to them, our community flourishes. I am greatly concerned about the continued changes and dipping into fund balance. The ride is coming to a close, and we still have projects, and we were purposeful. Spend those dollars, get our projects, our road projects ready to go. Design, get them teed up. It is now time in the next couple of years that we're gonna have to start putting those dollars back into construction. And if this board doesn't get a handle on being incrementally responsible, the fund balance, that's troublesome to me. You know, I look at the expenditures, and Jackie, I appreciate that slide that you showed us at retreat, because I told you that it is exactly the way that I have always pictured it in my head. When we have what do I want to call them? When we have these funds sitting out there where there are restricted funds, to me, that is our emergency fund, right? That's the 40% that we're setting aside all of these dollars. This is the savings account, the fund balance, the remainder. And we're down, is this year's number? Because I heard the last.
It ended at 59,672.
So, but that includes all the restricted dollars. So I know that when we. Right, I know that's the total. So if you pull out the restricted dollars back in January, February, you said we were at 8 million. We've spent money since then.
Yes.
Where are we at now with those dollars?
We took $1,350,000 out for HFFA, and we took $915,000 out for land at sea.
And we took $3 million out for town hall.
Okay, so we're down to nothing,
It's like 2 3/4 left.
right? We're down to nothing. If we don't reverse this trend line, our savings account, in order to address needs that may jump up at us, no different than when this board chose to purchase the land behind Town Hall, we could do that because we had a fund balance. This board, a future board, is not going to be able to do that. We spent those dollars. So from where I sit, I hear what Commissioner Munger and Commissioner Partee are saying about 20 cents. But I'm looking to Mr. Roberts and I'm looking at Ms. Huffman, and I'm saying, they're the experts. I'm going to listen to them. I'm at the manager's recommended budget. I would like 3 or 4 of you to take a hard look at that too, because I just have great concerns about the direction that we're headed financially. Commissioner Kidwell?
Were you concerned for the past 4 years when you voted for revenue neutral and we ate into those funds? You can't be concerned now about us eating into our savings amount, balance, or whatever you want, if for the past 4 years we've been revenue neutral. You can't pick and choose like that.
I hear you, and I did make this same argument year after year. That's the direction the board chose to go. Commissioner, does somebody else have a hand up over here? Nope.
I would really prefer to stay at 19.
So you got 2 voters at 19, 2 at 20, 2 at neutral, and Stacy is undecided. I don't want to speak for you.
No, that's correct.
No,
No one, right now, to
No.
clarify, even though the mayor will vote for the standard, she doesn't have a vote, so it's
no, I don't,
2,
and two.
1, and 1 undecided.
So we got a
One and one.
hour and
Yeah, two,
15
two.
minutes to try to figure it out. I'll be out here about 6:15, so the planning board can get set up around 6:30.
Mm-hmm.
And we're answering any questions you have, I mean, but cutting 5 here and 1,000 there and 15 and 20, I don't think we'll get there doing that if y'all want to do that.
You set the tax rate, they will figure out how to balance the budget.
You give me
That's the
4,
way it works.
tell me what 4 hands want to do, we'll figure it out from there.
I want us to figure out a tax rate. I do not want to have to vote for 20 cents to be able to get us to vote. I genuinely do not want to, but I also don't want us to sit at a stalemate. I would prefer the manager's recommended budget, but I admittedly would go to 20 if we have to make sure that it doesn't go revenue neutral and put us in the hole. Genuinely do not want to.
We're not gonna go in the hole at revenue neutral. It's just we cut back on things.
But
This
then
is
next year,
typical,
we're gonna
this
have
is
to go up.
typical, listen, departments in companies always, hey, what are you planning for your budget? Oh, I'm gonna need XXX. And then someone in that same company goes, okay, well, you're only gonna get XX. Make it work. It's the same concept here. If we say revenue neutral, they're gonna find revenue neutral. If you say 19, they're gonna say, okay, we can spend whatever we want. Or 20 or whatever it is.
Mr. Roberts, when you sat down with department heads, did every department head get what they wanted?
No. Part of it, I think there's some confusion in, you know, the way we set it up. Obviously, if I told Stephen to put in what he wanted for raises, and then Kevin to put in what he wanted for raises, and Michael to put in what he wanted for raises, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't be the same. And then, so ultimately, you don't see that in there. We plug that in for them of what we're gonna recommend, because who knows what they would recommend. Nothing personal, but I'm sure they're not all thinking the same number. So you'll see, we plug that in, but, you know, their request, I don't think we ever they'll come in, when we start out early, maybe requesting a lot of things we'll cut back. I can't remember all the things we cut, but no, we never fund everything they ask for.
If we can take 10 minutes, can we take a 10-minute break? Everybody go with that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Okay. All of these are still red. Oh, we did it. Got it. All right. So we are back. Thank you for the break. So let's get back into the conversation around the tax rate. Anybody else have anything to add at this point? Where we left off, Commissioner Munger and Commissioner Partee were at 20 cents. Commissioner Kovacs was at 19. Commissioners Kidwell and Commissioners Boone were at 17.6. And Commissioner Phillips was undecided. And to be, just for those watching, revenue neutral is 17.6. Manager's recommended tax rate is 19 cents. So that's where we've left it. Any additional discussions? Commissioner Munger.
I'll just kind of throw out there, one of the things we've always kind of prided ourselves on the fact is that we're possibly, and feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, one of the leanest staffed municipalities in Mecklenburg County, if not the state. You can correct me if I'm wrong. And typically, I know under previous police chief, the target was, I think, 110, roughly, officers, and we usually hover around 98, 99. Am I close?
Bad enough, yep.
So, and if you asked a previous chief, and I'm sure if I asked soon-to-be Chief Graham, what that actual number should be to properly staff and take care of the needs of this town, it'd probably be closer to 120, 130.
Yeah, the state average is 2.0, we have 70,000.
It would probably be closer to 140.
140, I'm way up. So when we say, did staff get everything they wanted? No, they didn't get everything they wanted. You have to understand at the same time, staff knows what this board's going to do. Staff knows that this board is going to balk at a number like 19. When in actuality, and I'm not going to put anyone on the spot, under no circumstances should any staff member admit to this, but if it came right down to it, staff would tell you that that number should be 20, 21, 22 to take care of the actual needs of this town and to provide the proper staffing for everything that we need. So when I say 20, understand 20 is not just a number that I'm randomly pulling out of nowhere and just saying 20 to be obstinate to try and get it up. 20 is probably a compromise for what it should be. So it's not, I'm not trying to be obstinate to, I mean, everyone in the room knows I'm a liberal and liberals want to spend money, which
You
is,
are?
I'll have that argument with anyone at their leisure, but it's about funding and trying to do the right thing. So don't think of 20 as being the outlier. 20 is the actual compromise. 20 gives staff what they need and lets them plan more healthy rather than, well, we're not going to get 20, we're not going to get 22, so maybe we can get 19. Maybe this board will see the light enough to get us 19 and we can kind of do stuff and get some stuff done, because heaven knows if they do 17.6, they do revenue neutral, we're going in the hole. So, I mean, I just want this board to understand 20 wasn't just, off a whim, let's just do 20. 20 was a thought out process to find an actual compromise between what I know this board can do and what the staff and town and people need. 20 is a perfectly reasonable number. I'll leave it at that for now.
Anyone else?
I'd like to ask
Sure
Jackie,
do.
thank you. I'd like to ask Jackie a question. Jackie, of any towns, I know Charlotte reduced their fund balance this year or last year, and some surrounding towns have also reduced their fund balance. We ever looked into that? far as reducing the requirements for our fund
You
balance?
mean the percentage that we set aside or set as a goal?
I think we talked about it last year.
I don't keep up with that, is the
Well, we
true
did
thing,
that
it's true answer to that.
2
I
years
don't
ago.
keep up with what people set their fund balance policy. I hear about it routinely, but no, I have not. The local government commission recommendation is, generally speaking, larger municipalities probably need to keep set aside a smaller percentage, because as a percentage of their budget, it's going to be a much larger number anyway. So that's a loose, I get you a copy of a memo by the local government commission. They used to put out how you compare with your peers by population, and they've said, you know, that's not really a logical comparison group. Now they're recommending that you compare yourself to other entities of comparable budget size. While I would say the amount of fund balance that we have is larger than many, there are other entities who are growing, and yes, there are entities who are using theirs. I'll distribute that. I'll distribute that memo one day this week, probably Friday.
Anyone else?
I mean, we have to come to a decision, and I feel like I'm in the middle right now.
Literally, you are in the middle.
Yes.
Divorce isn't your fault, it's fine.
I hate you. If we were to redline and find some ways to take things out, would those at 20 be willing to go down to 19?
Why do you have to take things out if you've got a balanced budget in front of you?
Because they feel that we need more funding to come in. So if they need more cash flow. I mean, we haven't talked about personnel, COLA, and merit, but I think that could potentially be somewhat of a decent fluctuation depending on how that goes.
So if you tell me what you're trying to achieve, I
Right.
can probably help you achieve that. So if you said 19, so let's say if you said, I'm gonna go 19. So Patty, in 19, does it have the does it have, the town hall payment out of it, the
No.
dispatch on the merit?
The 19 cents has everything in it,
So I can.
As presented in the.
as
board
presented in the
package.
manager's budget, right?
Alright, so if I went back, so let's say we went revenue neutral 17.6, I'm just saying we went revenue neutral, I was gonna cut 2.1, I could still cut 2.1 out of that, right?
Yes,
And
so,
so then you do a positive contribution.
like, the 17.6 has the, like you said, has the town hall debt out of it, has 500,000 out of it for, the 17.6 already has the 1.5 out for town hall debt.
And 2%.
It already has the 420 out, which is the 2%, and it has the 500 out for dispatch. So this is balanced at the 17.6.
So if you went to, let's say you went 19. 19 had all that still in there. So you could still come back and, obviously, we're gonna have savings on dispatch. We just worked that out last week, so take out some of the merit COLA, 2%. So all you would do is ultimately make, this number would start to become positive.
And that 1715, that negative is the POW bill and the stormwater fund balance. So if I took out the 1.5, it's just gonna make, it's gonna flip that number, and we would actually contribute
That's what I'm
to,
saying, it'd be positive.
contribute to fund balance.
So if you kind of tell me what you're trying to achieve, I can help you get there. But I just need to know what you're trying to achieve.
When we had retreat, we walked through all these projects. We had conversations around what park projects that we wanted to see. I know we pulled one splash pad out for this upcoming year. So this budget reflects everything that this board said was important when we had retreat. If it wasn't important, then it should have been pulled then, in my opinion. But here we are, and now you have to set the tax rate. You set the goals, you set the objectives a few months ago. Now it's time to follow through. And I don't agree with you, Commissioner Munger, about the 20%. I think that the manager and the finance director and the deputy assistant town manager knows what they're doing and provides a conservative budget for us to approve. So I would struggle going 20%. I'll just put that right out there on the table, because I know that they look at it through a fiscally conservative lens. Commissioner Munger.
Yeah, I'm gonna address two things on there real quick. So you did just hear our fire chief say 140 is the number we should have.
Police chief.
Mine's going 100 million directions right now, sorry. The police chief said that the staffing should be 140, we're at 98, we're currently budgeted at 110. Again, this is a prime example of they budget based on what they think they can get, not what they think they should have.
And I would argue that we have been struggling for years to hire police officers.
And I'm all for addressing it and giving them more funds to do
And
it.
when we have officers in BLET, I think this board should do those amendments to the budget to make sure that the police department has the personnel that they need.
Yeah.
But until we can hire, it makes no sense to budget for 140 when you can't hire them.
If I could
That's-
get
that-
full,
It's just irresponsible.
I disagree, I think it highlights the need. It just goes out there and says, screams, we have an absolute need to have my goodness, police officers in this town, and we need a lot more. I don't know why I'm stuck on that thing. And the other brief point I wanted to make is the irony of recession. When people say there's a recession coming, we should cut back what we're doing, what is the result almost always?
recession.
Why did it happen? Because we cut back on expenditures. It's cause and effect. I mean,
Well, it's just dumb to spend more money if you know it's coming.
But it's not.
It
It makes
is.
perfect sense to spend more money, because as a recession happens, costs come down and you have more buying power. And if you have the money available to do things during that period, you have more power to be able to commit to more things.
So go 19.
I'm sorry.
And
It sounded like
I have
20.
to say, using that logic, you would think that costs do come down, but costs don't come down. Real estate prices still rise even through a recession.
2008.
That's,
It was a recession. It was called
But beyond
the
that.
Great Recession.
yeah.
Real estate,
That was a banking
Prices
financial
tanked.
disaster because of improper lending. That's what caused that.
so it wasn't a recession.
It was, but not to that point that we were saying. Touche, though.
Let's get back to the tax rate, please.
Yep.
Anyone else?
Fine. I'll go 16.7.
Commissioner Phillips and I are the only two outliers.
We got 45 minutes to work it out.
I feel like I filled up the room with all my voices. No one needs to hear me anymore. Happy to discuss it with anyone.
I've talked to, if this is what is 19 is what's required to do what we need to do for our residents, then I think that's what we need to do for our residents, because I do not want to set up the next board to have to come in and raise the tax rate and the residents just think that it's a big shock, because here we are. What most people, when they look at they look at the total, but if they're gonna see we went from 24 to 17.6, wow, how great is that? And then all of a sudden next year we gotta go to 20 or 21, it looks like we're being greedy when we could have met in the middle and said, hey, maybe we can sustain this 19 cents for a little bit longer. I know, or 20 cents. I get it.
I know, I was gonna perhaps add some thoughts to the 20 and the raising. I'm not attacking. One of the things we did with, the last time we did a bond issue, if I remember correctly, we had the authority to raise taxes
5 cents.
5 cents. How much did we raise taxes?
3.
3. I think part of the thing 20, and Jackie, you're fabulous with numbers. I think you're very conservative with projections, and rightly so. A lot of times we overachieve based on what you say in terms of what our revenues are actually going to be.
Yes.
Absolutely. So I think one of the things that the 20 cents solves is it has a very reasonable potential, if she's underestimated future revenue projections, to be a one and done. You hit that 20, and I know the projections indicate that our numbers continue to go down, but if revenues actually increase, I think 20 has the potential to level.
And I hate that I have to think about it, but Mecklenburg County being the huge chunk of change most people spend, I mean, when people complain about their taxes, most of the time they're complaining about the total amount, and they're not realizing that the biggest chunk is going to Mecklenburg County. And in turn, a lot of times us as the town, we have to scale back on the taxes because we don't want to burden our residents too much, when really it's not our tax rate that's burdening them, it's the county. And so we do that constantly, and then we're trying to figure out other ways to cut corners to make things work for us. Again, I'm still stuck at 19, but I think that is at least a fair way to say, listen, we're not gonna go, because we said, what, 1.5 is what Mecklenburg County is gonna go above revenue neutral?
Yeah, that's what
Okay, I would caution you, that's manager's recommended budget. You don't know what their board's gonna do either.
True. I'm just saying, I don't wanna go even higher than what they're going above revenue neutral, but I also don't wanna go at revenue neutral, because then again, we're still not getting the money that we need to do things for our residents to have what they need, because the largest amount goes to Mecklenburg County, and let's be real, that doesn't help with getting our roads or any of our infrastructure. Their tax rates make it hard for us to actually tax our residents to get what we need for them.
Well, we are Huntersville. We are not Mecklenburg County. I fully acknowledge we exist inside Mecklenburg County. When someone opens up their tax bill, 2 lines, total. Which one do they look at? Total. It's the only one that matters. I mean, it's the vast majority.
Mr. Roberts.
We'll see if I can, I know we've got folks all over the board here. I'm gonna see if I can corral us into a pen here and get us to a number. So I'm gonna go with the manager's recommended budget and see if I can get Mr. Partee and Mr. Munger to come down to 19. So if we take the 19 tax rate and we take out the 2.1 million that we talked about, trying to get revenue neutral, and still take it out of 19, and you'll worry about numbers, on out and how it affects us.
What numbers you're taking out, just so.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
What I'm doing right now.
So we'll pull them.
So, Patty,
Go
can you
ahead.
not just go to the 19.6
Yes.
spreadsheet and change the tax rate to, the 17.6 spreadsheet and change the tax rate to 19?
Yep, and then pull the 2.1 out of that,
Okay.
right? I mean, because ultimately,
It's already out, isn't it?
no, not in the 19 one, right?
No,
If you go to the
17.6.
17.6, that already has
she
the
did.
Yes,
2.1
and add it to-
taken
and-
out,
yes.
and then change the
Same
tax
effect.
rate to 19 cents.
You got it.
Now, so that's what happened. So we would be favorable 1.285.
So you remember we were 718,000-ish in the hole? So what that does is, if I'm getting it, Ms. Munger, this number starts they get up a little higher, all these numbers a little bit higher, we don't dip in the fund balance here at all, and that helps throughout. So that's still pulling 2.1 million out.
What did you take out?
Took out you remember the same thing, I took out 1.5 for town hall debt service payment, I'm not kicking it down the road. Pulled that out, and we pulled out,
2%?
420,000, which is 2% of the merit COLA. And then we also, took out dollars for dispatch. Because I worked on that agreement, I don't have it in front of us yet, but that number will come down.
So we're dropping merit COLA from the 8+2 to 6 point.
Dropping 10 to 8.
10 to 8, and then you're not paying 1.5 on the town hall.
That's right.
Effectively, you're putting
Guess
that in
you're-
debt service reserve, so you'll have set aside some money to make the town hall debt service payment in FY '25.
You'll have 2 and 25, and moving forward for 20 years.
And what was our rationale for making the merit COLA 10?
The COLA was based on CPI.
Yeah. So
And that was
gonna be giving
8%.
a raise lower than CPI.
No, I'm just saying,
I'm just asking, I want clarification on what these numbers are.
You're not making it lower, you're making it the equivalent of a prior calendar year CPI.
You're dropping the 2% merit,
So no merit, just all COLA.
all COLA 8%.
unless the board decides something different, we're saying 8%, the CPI itself is 8%. And if you look at sort of what the surrounding town, I think Cornelius is looking at a total of 7.5%. I've got the whole list of the towns. So we're trying to stay, above them, and then CMPD is jumping up big time on their officer salaries. Yes, sir.
I was gonna ask that question. Did I hear that CMPD just jumped their salaries up?
Yes.
They're jumping up.
And how's that gonna affect us as far as recidiv rate and recruiting, and also trying to stay compatible to CMPD?
So if we go up,
I'm always your
go ahead.
disclaimer girl, that the proposal is that they would take their starting pay, that includes a 10% incentive if you have a four-year degree, to 62,900. So without the 10% for a four-year degree, it's in the 56 range.
what will ours be, Jackie, if we go only 8% COLA?
Today, ours is 48,825. If you implement a
48?
8% COLA, but you only move minimum pay by 5%, then your ballpark 51.7.
If you move it all
Move
8.
it the entire 8%, your ballpark 52 and change.
So 52 versus 56 with no degree. That's what we'll be, if we're competing with CMPD. So that's part of the reason of, the COLA, et cetera, moving the ranges. That's why, and I didn't make up the 8%. The COLA, the CPI is the CPI. I didn't make it up. It's a spreadsheet we use. We used the same one last year, and the board went higher. It was I think I said 4.7, and y'all went a little bit higher, but we go off of that sheet. I don't make that up. That ain't me pulling it out.
0.7% less than Social Security in calendar 2030.
So to compete with CMPD, that's factored in to our budget.
Yeah, with the 8%.
8% is, so the new numbers we just showed is 8% is in there. That's still taking 2.1 million out. And the 8% COLA is in there, to help with the CMPD issue. And this is what our numbers would be positive in 24 now, and it would help obviously out in future years too.
Commissioner Kovacs?
I was just gonna ask, Major / Chief, how many incoming officers do you have?
Good news is, in the last 3 weeks, I've done 10 chiefs interviews, 2 of them for civilians and 8 of them for officers. Out of that 8, 5 are BLET BLET cadets, which means we'll send them to school. The other 3 are lateral transfers in, just offer the conditionals, no background debt, all that. So we may lose 1 or 2 of those, but for the first time in a long time, we're making progress.
Most of us
Yes.
Thank you, so we are headed in a better direction.
Yes.
I would love to be full one day, just on the numbers we have budget, but
Yeah.
we, I think I glazed it maybe at one time, but
Medium raises too.
we hadn't got to.
So what we're seeing here is the 19 cents with the changes that, okay.
With the, like
All
I
right,
say,
so here's 2.0, managers recommended 2.0.
just trying to get us to come together and maybe
Right,
get four
some-
hands go up maybe.
So is there a discussion around this proposal?
I mean, it's where I'm at, so
I know,
I
I
have
hear
nothing
you.
to say.
Do we know how many houses we've annexed in the last year?
It's property, right?
Just 0? Okay.
What happens if we annex it and then we build the houses?
So we have no annexations, but we've got some, COs issued and we've got some building permits issued, but, residents pay their tax bill based on what their value was January.
Yeah.
And we build in some growth factors in these numbers.
That second year, yeah.
I'll drop down to 19.
Thank you, Commissioner Barty.
I'll go to recommendation.
Anyone else? Additional conversation? I mean, the fund balance continues to drop, however, it at least stabilizes somewhat.
Come on,
And the
Lance.
truth is that,
Come on, Lance.
Absolutely not.
Go 22, Lance.
You know, the more we talk about it, the more I want to go to a higher number. Again, we have capital needs. We have them all over this town. And we have staffing needs. And, you know, if we
Well, that gives
actually
you-
want to do something
that's a
interesting with
baseline.
this town, you're going to have funds to do it.
but we can't accomplish all of that in 1 year.
You're
You
darn
have to
right you
be
can't, but you set the baseline to build on it today.
And that's the manager's recommended budget.
I mean, it's simply, it's like the old proverb, if you want a tree to provide you your grandchildren shade, you plant it today. You do what's appropriate today so that the future has the capability to do the things that this town needs. And that's what I believe in. And that's why, like I said, 20 isn't like trying to drag you all the way out here. If I wanted to drag you all the way out there, I'd have said, let's just stay at 24. It makes perfect sense to me. I mean, we would have enough reserve to be able to do everything we need to do. That's probably a bit excessive and everyone would lose their mind. So 20 was an absolute compromise for me. Because originally I wanted to do 22 and I figured out based on the recommended budget and the numbers that, yeah, I would never win that battle. It's just impossible.
But here's what
20
I
was
would-
reasonable.
Here's what I will say. The manager's recommended budget at 19, you allow the residents to speak on the bonds. And then next year, once they've spoken, then if there is a need to increase that budget and that tax rate, then they do it then, because they are willing to, correct, thank you, because they're willing to pay that. You set this here at 19, manager recommended budget, you've got some flexibility built in regards to what it's gonna take to finish that study for fire, what potential needs there in that transition. That's the recommended budget, and that's the one that I'm still gonna hold to, because next year, depending upon what the residents say about that bond package, that would be another increase.
Right. And
To set it at 20, and then to turn around next year, and let's just make the assumption that they say yes, and then you increase it, you're kind of building in a cushion that, in my opinion, you probably shouldn't be building. You need to let the citizens speak on that one.
I mean,
But-
even if we didn't do the bond budget, if the bond fails and we set at 20 cents, there are so many needs that we could justify the 20 cents. And again, one of the cases I made is because Jackie makes some very conservative estimates, we love her for that. Maybe we hit 20 and maybe it just loves. And I like that idea, I like the possibility of we set that once and we wait another 4 years for reval before we even have to think about it. That's an ideal situation to me. Gosh darn, there was one other point I wanted to make, but it seems to have escaped me. My apologies.
And I will say, if, obviously with what Jackie and Patty does, these numbers are not gonna be as bad as what they're projecting here. I mean, that's why they do what they do, to make sure if we go buy a piece of land that, we can stomach some of those. The other thing I would say, if we get some of the grants, the CRTPO grant, et cetera, $3 or $4 million, hit that helps that number. Now,
Could stabilize it.
if I didn't mess up, that'll help even more. So I feel very comfortable with 19,
I know.
and I think we'll be fine.
The other point why we'll never go to 19 is this is based on zero merit. And I can't in good conscience tell the employees of this town, you deserve a COLA at zero merit.
It doesn't have to be zero merit, it could be lower COLA
Could be,
and
CPI
merit.
is 8. It's
We
zero
also went
merit.
over it last year. We went
Wow.
over last year, so we don't have to go add it this year.
At the time we did it last year, if I remember correctly, the inflation rate, I'm trying to remember, was around 8.5. What? It was 3.7.
CPI was 4.7.
I
Yep,
try to
you only do
measure on
CPI.
a calendar year basis, so
Fair.
we're not making projections about what
Yeah.
it might be. And so calendar 21,
Mhm.
CPI was 4.7, and we increased COLA 5%, so there was a 0.3 delta.
Wow, we went way overboard, didn't we? 0.3% is what we went overboard last year. So this year, the CPI was
8.
8 flat.
Yep, 8 flat
So,
for the whole year. average.
so over a 2-year period, we're basically saying we're gonna give you 0.3% better than the CPI. And that's, no, just no.
Well, depending on how you slice, whether it's 8% COLA or 6 and 2, 6% COLA and 2 merit, I'm just talking here. At the end of the day, the CPI went up 8%. Now, you see some towns are doing smaller COLA and merit, but they're staying around that 7.5%. Is what we're seeing, 7.5 to 8%. So no matter how you slice that pie, I would say for us, what we try to do is make sure we move those ranges up. The ranges need to move, especially PD. So,
If you wanna add some spice to the conversation, I recommend 3% COLA and 2% merit. So there's some money.
and that, if that's what you decide to do, that's what we do. That will put us further behind the other towns, but, if that's what the four hands say, then that's what I'll do.
I meant to ask this question, Jackie, where are we at with our hourly rate, our hourly employees? With this 8% increase, where would that move them?
So, you want it, or you want me to take it?
You do it, you do it, I'll pull up the spreadsheet and grade you.
So ultimately, I think we would have 10 to 12 employees under the $20 range, $20 an hour, roughly 10 to 12 employees, townwide.
Today, we have 22 full-time employees with an hourly rate that's less than $20 an hour. I make up $20 an hour. That's an attempt to be more comparable to the county, the city, and one of the municipalities that's already working toward $20 an hour. So today, we're at 22. If you do the 8%, 22 below the $20 an hour would become 10.
There you go. Yeah, good
Okay,
memory.
that's progress.
So there's some rhyme and reason, obviously, behind why we picked 8. Obviously, 8 is the CPI. It helps our ranges move up. It gets to, getting up to closer to $20 an hour for all employees.
So you said out of the 22 with the 8%, it would
10 left.
take us down to 10 left. And how close are they to 20 hours, or $20 an hour?
The closest one I remember is $19.90 an hour. I think the least one is 17. I'm gonna guess 17.28.
Okay. Thank you.
Public Works and the PD is vacant. We're rolling through them left and right. Thank goodness we're getting some in, but Kevin, it's a vicious cycle.
Commissioner Boone, do you have anything to add at this point?
I don't.
Commissioner Phillips?
I mean, I'm revenue neutral, but we just gotta cut stuff. And it can be done. Like, I've sat here and just did back of a notebook math and.
So how are we going to get this budget balanced and passed? What's the tax rate gonna be? We can't keep just sitting here staring at one another. We've got to do the work. And it sounds to me like,
Well, you got 2 on one, 2 on another. And so it's in,
I'm revenue neutral.
Yeah.
I mean, if we can make the numbers work, like, I'm fine with that, but we gotta cut stuff.
and that's where we tell him, find it.
I already gave you a
That's-
revenue neutral plan and cut at least
That's-
2.1
that's-
million.
Yeah, and that's what we hear all the time. Anthony's the president of the company. We tell the president of the company as a board what we want, we make it happen. He makes it happen.
Four hands say revenue neutral, we're gonna, like I said, I showed you at least 2.1 million to cut, just like that, to get to revenue neutral out of those 3 items. So if it's 19, I showed you a way to, so you just gotta give me direction and we'll make it happen. Otherwise, what'll happen is we'll show up on June 5th, and I don't know if we got a pre-meeting. I guess we'll get it, bash our heads at the pre-meeting if we don't have one. Do we have a pre-meeting yet? So we'd probably come back in here and, circle around the table and,
Back in here, June 5th, that's at the rec center.
oh, that's right, we'll go to rec center,
Rec center.
circle around, and then maybe Patty will bring a computer and a printer or something, and we'll, do it on the fly, I don't know. And then if that don't work on June 5th, I guess we continue to the next meeting, and I guess I'll come back from the beach and show up here and see if we work it out then. Then I won't go past that day, we'll have to regroup after that.
the 19th. I had to look. I was like, it wasn't the 20th. I knew it wasn't the 20th.
So we got 25 more minutes to hug.
Now we're just throwing numbers out. It doesn't sound to me like we're gonna get anywhere this evening.
Okay,
Um,
suggest that, because I will go with you.
18. That's 0.04 more than revenue neutral. It's a darn compromise,
We still need to take some stuff out, but.
yes.
So we could do at 18, we'd still be able to do the, what we talked about taking out.
Can we look at 18 just for insanity's sake?
Yeah,
and
just, and leave the 2.1 out. Yeah, at 18, raise it to 18. All you gotta do is change it,
it doesn't do anything.
right?
It's less than 0.5%. It's 0.4. We're at 17.6 now, and she wants to go to 18, that's 0.4.
I'm trying to
We gotta
compromise.
we gotta find something.
Otherwise, we're not passing a budget, and that's not gonna be a good time for anybody
Well,
except me.
I will say this board has no choice but to pass a budget. If that budget's not passed by June 30th, then we are derelict.
budget if you don't have an actual budget. If it's hard one time, it's gonna be harder twice.
That's correct. So unless everyone is willing in the next 8 minutes to have some honest dialogue around the direction that we want to go for this town in setting this tax rate for the next year, then we just need to go ahead and adjourn for this evening and come back with a pre-meeting on June the 5th. And between now and then, I challenge everyone who's sitting here who's on opposite sides to start having some conversation.
What was the conversation you and Lance had? Can you share that?
Commissioner Munger was asking if I could go to 19.5.
Stacy, you're asking 18.
Well, I mean, if they're going up, I'm staying at revenue neutral. I'm not gonna compromise if I don't need a compromise.
I think Stacy and I are sitting at the point where either I gotta compromise and go up or down, or Commissioner Phillips has to go up, we just have to find something. We have to find something that works for both the town and the residents.
Commissioner Boone?
I can't speak for Rob, but I think I'll go with 18. Go along.
Let's go with 18.
Okay, there's 4 for 18, hopefully.
So now that we're spitballing, I'd like to know how that actually impacts the town, negative, positive.
So in this, what Patty has put together, hopefully we didn't fat finger anything, but I think we're fine. Let me get I forget the right one here. So at 18, that's what she plugged in there, 18. We pull the 2.1 million out that we talked about at revenue neutral. And so this is,
But you put back,
say it again.
the impact of the tax rate
Right.
change is no longer 2.1.
That's right.
Oh.
That's right. Well, because you raised the tax rate a little bit, obviously there's some revenue generated by that.
You okay with 18?
And this is where we are now. I think that used to be, what, 19-ish?
Yeah.
So now it's 22 on the out years, I'm just for comparison. So,
Is that, wait, where, is that, that's 19.
go back to,
Yep.
yes, 18, there you go. This is 18. Remember that was like, it was,
7 or 8. So if you've added, if the tax rate goes from 17.6 revenue neutral and you increase it to 18, that's 0.4. So if a penny generates $1.5 million, the 0.4 you just generated $600,000 in revenue.
so is this what we're thinking? I think I saw, well, all I heard 4 voices say,
Is this what
go
we're,
18.
so you want to
And-
do a straw poll? Go ahead.
Sorry, I was gonna
Good question.
say, I know that we have our dispatch agreement down for this fiscal year, but did you say that the
It's
year
going
after,
up.
it's gonna be up to that 550-ish, so this would cover us?
Additional 500.
We're
That's
looking
what I'm
at-
saying, the
Yeah.
0.4 cents would cover that additional at least.
We're looking at options, but I don't know that we're gonna have any great options.
But my mind is thinking, this is us planning for when that does go up the next fiscal year.
You'll be raising taxes next.
At least in this year, not going straight from
I'll
17 to
I'll compromise. I'm not
Find
thrilled
something.
with it.
Okay, so you want to do a straw poll around the 18?
Just to make sure that I'm going down the right path, but
All right, so those in favor of the 18-cent tax rate? And those opposed? All right, so then you have your marching orders.
as far as, I guess, in there, those cuts, I took the cuts out, 2%'s out, the town hall debt service is out, and then the dispatch is out.
That's my understanding. Is that your understanding? Okay.
You have 0 room for error going forward.
Correct.
That number will change if anything in the budget loses one of you. I guarantee it. And it's sad and pathetic.
You're just a bright ball of sunshine.
I am. We have done the town a terrible injustice, and we've.
Well, I could
done
argue
horrible
the same
things
thing for the
town
past few
employees.
years when you voted revenue neutral, instead of actually doing something.
We only do revenue neutral once every 4 years. We only set the tax rate once every 4 years. I mean, yes, we can adjust it, but we only have reval once every 4 years. My
Right.
apologies. Reval is almost,
But
it's
every
the
year we
one
set the
time
tax
every
rate.
4 years we must look at going revenue neutral. The rest of the time, I mean, it's just kind of a given. We don't change the tax rate unless there's a significant need.
All right, so now that we have done the people's business this evening, is there a
Are we
motion?
still going to meet, like, for the rest of this?
We just set the tax rate.
That was
Yeah,
the
but
big-
I'm not on board with, like, personnel.
Let's nail it down then.
Like,
Change those numbers.
You got 15 minutes. I mean, yeah, it's over. I mean, yeah.
I thought we were done.
Planning commissions.
Yeah, we got,
Yeah, planning board's getting ready to come in, so.
But that's why I'm asking, are we
We can discuss it
at the
June
pre-meeting?
5th. I mean, that's our options.
How about,
deep breath.
yes,
So we're just talking, I guess, now, Americola, is that the only item left? Is that what we're
I thought that was already identified when this board
Oh,
said
no.
18 cents with 8% cost of or you reduce 2% off of the COLA/merit. Nobody brought up a discussion
I
around the
did,
other.
I said that I think it needs to be 3-2.
No, sorry.
So then that changes these numbers, because that's another,
Mm-hmm.
that's another, 630,000.
And I had trash that I wanted to see if we were gonna go up a little bit more on the fee, so.
That's why we kept bringing up the.
Well, then
line.
why were we setting a tax rate
That's
and
why
then
I-
turning around and back being,
I mean,
we said,
if we want to
We
get
sat here
into-
for 2
so if
hours.
we got other line items, things
We said we wanted to talk about other stuff and people weren't listening to us though.
I said it 3 times, I wanna talk about other things that would affect it.
okay?
Let's have it, we gotta get it done.
Where do you want to start?
If it's
Personnel,
Americola, then
let's
knock
start.
it out. That's a big.
Yep, start with cost of living and merit.
To 8.
Yep,
Americola 8, we proposed 8% COLA, but 8% is in that. Is in this, this is what we have in the budget right now.
what do y'all want to do?
Remember, if you, ranges, what we haven't said, ranges move by COLA.
Commissioner Kovacs?
I already said 5 and 3. I mean, sorry, 3 and 2 to be 5. 3 COLA, 2 merit.
So if you reduced cost of COLA to 3 versus 8, what does that do to those starting salaries?
PD today is 48,825, and if you move the ranges by the total of 3%, starting pay would go to 50,219.
And what was it,
56.
56 and change.
56.
And while I understand CMPD would be more, it's also a different, different type of policing, yes.
So let me tell you what the other towns are proposing. So then we go.
Do we also have what they did last year? No, the other towns for COLA.
So I'm just combining these, but then I can break it out. Maricola 4, Hamill's looking at 11 combined. Davidson's looking at 8 combined. Matthews did just finished up with a pay bump, 2.2 million, so they're doing 3%. Huntersville was looking at 10 with 8. Midhill 7.5, 28 is 8. They were looking at, I think, 7.5 now. And Mack County, was 5.5. Some of these towns have done pay studies, so they've done a pay study and all. They would do something like we did right when I first got here, we had a lot of pressure. And we did a big pay bump then on some, various departments. So it looks like Cornelius is, unless something changed, this changes, these are old Cornelius was at least 4.5 COLA, 3.5 merit, that's probably changed.
And to be clear, Anthony, you're talking about manager recommended. Nobody's adopted nobody's adopted yet.
All right. 7.8% coal and 2.5% merit. Davidson, 6% merit, 2 coal. I'd say this is manager passing this on to me. Who knows what it's for ill means. These are Mecklenburg County.
All right, so, Amber, you're at, 3 and 2, Munger,
I'm a no.
just a no. Okay,
Can't hit the tax rate right, nothing else matters.
okay. Commissioner Phillips,
I'm fine with the 8, honestly.
Commissioner Boone,
6 and 2.
I'll go with 6 and 2, there we go.
Commissioner Partee,
8 and 2.
Commissioner Kidwell.
None of those,
None of those?
none of those.
What is yours?
All right. So we have 2 6 and 2s, 1 8 and 2, and 1 3 and 2. Any discussion on the reasoning? And, and then 2 no's.
You can put me down as 8 and 2 with
All right,
Commissioner Party, it doesn't matter.
2 8 and 2s. All right. Do we want to talk about the rationale around the difference in numbers, or are we just spitballing?
I mean, for me personally, the idea of 8%, 10%, I can't wrap my head around that much of a raise this year, plus what we did last year. 2 years in a row having such a significant raise, but then we were just talking about how we need to fund projects and other things. Like, I mean, I feel like we're talking out of both sides of our mouth.
Commissioner Boone?
I'm still at 6 and 2, but I'm listening.
Okay.
And I would like to clarify, it doesn't mean that I don't think our employees are wonderful and amazing, but again, we have to find a way to fund things and keep our town running at the same time. Last year, I was okay with big pay raises because I knew that things were changing in the world, but I just don't think we can handle doing it 2 years in a row.
Commissioner Phillips?
I mean, I'm at 6 and 2.
Wait, you're, 6 and 2. Sorry, I heard 8, and I realized I'd marked it out. I apologize. Commissioner Munger?
Why am I at 8 and 2? That's what he recommended.
Okay. Commissioner Partee?
In order to stay competitive with our sister townships in the city in Mecklenburg County, I want to go with what the recommended request was from our town manager, 8 and 2. I think it's appropriate. And that's all I'm going to say. This is sounding condescending. I don't want to go into my heart still.
Are we basing this just off police salaries?
No.
No, it's the entire town.
No. I know my answer. I'm saying, what are people basing their decisions off of? Because I love our police department, but I can't base this only off of my love for our police department.
Let me ask this question, Mr. Roberts. What departments other than police have we been challenged with in hiring?
Public Works is
My comment was
a pain,
about the
and
police
engineering at one time was crazy. Planning, we finally got engineering. I'm afraid to even say anything, because I think it's been 2-3 years beating
Yeah, I
ahead.
know.
Michael has in and out. I mean, every department pretty much, except for maybe the small departments have 1 or 2 people. We've been fortunate maybe, so far as stay there, but the rest of them,
The finance department has 5 employees, so that's a inappropriate measure, but they've had 40% turnover in calendar 23.
Commissioner
I
Boone?
have a compromise here. Mr. Munger, trash pickup is 18. If we went to 28 on trash pickup, and I'm at 6 and 2, then I would go to 7 and 2.
I'm still voting no on the overall budget. Know that.
That's fine, we're just trying to meet you somewhere so you don't feel like you got a big L, because I've had the big L's and they suck.
I know.
I'm trying to
and
include you in conversations, that's all we're trying to do.
I appreciate that.
Okay.
I mean, 7 and 2 would be improvement over 6 and 2, but it doesn't change my overall vote, and I do appreciate the effort.
Okay, then I would go to Commissioner Partey. Are you still at 8 and 2?
I am.
Okay. Try.
My question then, if we go 6 and 2 with cost of living, so if we go 6, what's that impact to those hourly paid employees? I mean, you said if we went to 8, that it would get 22 would go down to 10 with $20 or more an hour. What would that do to our hourly employees?
Well, if they get 8%, they get 8%, no matter how you slice it, but
Yeah.
the range side of it is gonna be.
And that's my point, is that whatever you're setting that cost of living, the entire range gets bumped up. And I just want to make sure, it's not just about policing, it's about all of those departments and making sure that we're getting everyone. Otherwise, we're going to be where we were in 2013,
It's not just out of
2014, when we
town.
did that cost of living, when we did that pay scale for the first time, after however many years it was, and it was awful. It was so painful to have to make those decisions and the impact to the tax rate.
I mean, it's private sector too. I mean, Kevin's guys
Just the
and/or girls,
incremental
private sector.
pieces make
So
more
it's-
sense.
That's why, the 8%, but
I can't predict whether somebody's gonna get the 2%, the full
True.
COLA or not. But if absolutely everybody is guaranteed a 6% raise, then there would be 15 people under $20 an hour, and the lowest paid employee would be at $16.75 an hour.
So those lowest paid employees, what type of positions are they in? That, can they move up? Is there a different echelon for them? Like, I mean, no?
They're maintenance type positions, and so we have advancement for maintenance type positions. Does that answer your question?
I mean, they've been advancing a whole lot quicker than they normally would, I would say, based on what I've seen in previous years. Just in, we've had guys and girls with less experience advance quicker probably than normal.
Is that because of the retirements?
Well, just because, I gotta find someone to fog a mirror, just to be
Oh,
honest.
yeah, there's that.
Sometimes that's literally gotta find someone who can pick up a shovel. I mean,
It's
that's,
because of vacancies.
Yeah.
We have tried to,
we,
because of vacancies, we've tried to
Start hiring at a higher rate.
start hiring at a higher rate and filling new promotions that
with people with less experience than we
Right.
probably would normally feel. I mean, it's just nature of the beast.
That gives them somewhat of a living rate wage,
Well, that's,
which is important, a living wage.
Well, that's why we, very seldom we hire at entry level anymore. You just can't. I mean, I can, like I say, you go to work at the county, I can go sit at the front desk down at one of the rec centers, $20 an hour. Babysit, $20 an hour.
So
My daughter makes.
as someone who's actively job searching, sorry, CMS, I'm seeing a lot of positions, when I'm scrolling through, $17 and $18 an hour, a ridiculous amount of positions, and those are positions that require, certifications, or
My wife's a
things
teacher,
such.
so I can tell you what she makes,
No,
29
but
years.
I'm not talking about, it's usually in the field of working with other people, but it's still $17 to $18 an hour is the average. A lot of entry levels like $15, $16 an hour. So I'm hearing our argument, but I also am seeing that the pay out there is in the $15 to $18 range.
I guess my
And that's in
question,
the private sector.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, you're fine, but that's in the private sector.
I understand with, the type of work, I mean, is it manual labor work?
There-
That,
It shows me everything. It thinks
I'm
I can
curious.
do
I mean,
everything.
I have 3 kids working, so I know, all 3 of them are making over $15 an hour, high school kid,
yeah,
washing cars.
yep.
So anywhere from probably $18 to $22 an hour.
And for the part-time things, I'm seeing some of the part-time things are actually better paying, or the contract or the temporary stuff is better paying. But I mean, to go be a behavior specialist, it's $17 an hour. And you have to have a certification, stuff like that. So I'm just trying to give some context as to where my brain is.
4.5 and 2?
Can we do 4 and 3?
4 and 3 is, that's 7. We were going for 8. I'm fine doing that.
So if we can't get a compromise, so when I come to the budget, June 5th, it will have 8% in there, and ultimately, before we give out raises, I'll need, if 4 people raise their hand for the budget, the way it's presented at $18, I'm not $18,
18 cents.
18-cent tax rate, 8% is built in there. If 4 hands go up, that's what's in there. Now, the board may come back and say, well, I don't want to do 8% COLA, I want it 6 and 2, 4 and 4, 5 and 3, whatever. But that's what will be in the budget unless something else is resolved today. That's what's coming to you June 5th,
What time does
right now.
no, okay.
So June 5th is likely to be a long meeting.
Yes, it is gonna be a long meeting. Commissioner Munger.
Yeah, just one quick point on the difference between merit and COLA. Just keep in mind, the higher the COLA, the more flexibility managers have in terms of being able to bring people in, give them raises, and just fit them into a bracket. If you split that 50-50, 4-4 sounds just like an 8-0 COLA. 4-4 greatly restricts the dynamics, the flexibility that a manager has. Keep that in mind. I would emphasize that whatever compromise you feel like you can come up with, lean towards COLA heavily. That's my opinion.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I just want to wrap this up. Lance, you know, I started with 6 and 2 and you're at 8 and 2. I came up to 7 and 2 and you're still a strong 8 and 2. I'm trying to compromise so we can get this thing.
I said I would be open to 7 to 2, but overall, I still say because we could not get the property tax rate commensurate with what my beliefs are, I will not vote for this budget until you hit 20. And I know that ship sailed. I appreciate the 7 and 2. I think that's a step in the right direction overall, but it's not going to change my vote.
You're in the same camp as Lance?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, and then there was another compromise from Stacy. You said 5 and 3? 5 COLA and 3 merit? Did I hear that right?
No, 4.5 and 2.
4.5 and 2. Can't do that.
Okay, we're
Well, if
gonna
you're
have
not
to
gonna meet
finish
up, we
this
gotta
up on
meet.
June 5th.
If you throw your 4 hands up for the 18 cents, that's 8% in there. If the board, unless I hear otherwise, then that's what's gonna be in there, and you'll have to give me direction, otherwise it's all going to COLA.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. Thank you. All those in favor? Good night, Huntersville.